Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Reviews on the Record. My name is Rocky. This is where each week we go over a book from one of my 5 book clubs and we connect it to some of the amazing music in my vinyl collection. And then as a community, we talk a little bit about some of the concepts that we found either in the book or on the record that we're putting out. So this week, we are focusing on a book club from what I like to call my NBC book club. So 4 of my book clubs are with amazing groups of people, sometimes smaller groups, sometimes larger groups. And so we have a variety of tastes and interests. So that makes it really interesting. But my NBC book club is just between my partner and I. So we take turns each month. I choose or he chooses, and then NBC stands for Naked Book Club. So after we read a book, then both of us, once we're done, will stay in bed for a morning and just chat about the book, about how it connects to our lives or anything else that's maybe on our minds. So we spend the morning together in bed connecting. So I chose for this month's NBC, and I chose A Look Closer by David Ellis. This is the first book I've ever read from this author, and I can say for the most part, I was pleasantly surprised. I think that the writing style was good. They definitely took different points of view that I really enjoyed. And I think overall that the story was something that kept my interest the whole time. And for music that I wanted to connect to, this time around I'm doing Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. I think that the book really holds on to, and one of the main themes is that one of the main characters holds on to and has a grudge for many, many years. And I think the song You Ought to Know is kind of perfect for part of the storyline because one of these main characters is not understanding how this other person wouldn't see this resentment and be able to understand how they've held it for so many years. So I think that that song is perfect. There's a lot of rage. If you were a teen during the 90s, then you heard a lot of songwriters, especially female ones, rage out against systems. And I think this whole album is phenomenal, but that song specifically speaks to really pointing out to someone, you ought to know what you did to me. And in this book, the 2 main characters, Simon and Vicky, you think that you know what the relationship is, you think you know what's going on. There's a lot of complexity to their relationship, and what everybody else sees from the outside isn't necessarily what's going on. And I think that really ties into this idea of look closer. There are lots of twists and turns. I can say I really didn't like a lot of the characters, but I think it's because of the circumstances. A lot of them were pushed into circumstances that made them make choices that were not very likable. So overall, 4 out of 5 on my review. Spiciness, I would say 1.5 out of 5. But character development, even though I didn't like a lot of the characters, I think that their layers and their stories and their backgrounds were really interesting and aided a lot in the storytelling in general. So for that, I would say 4 out of 5. And my question to all of you for this week is, how do you share vulnerable information? Are there some things that you don't tell your partner or friends, and what are some of those things? I can say for myself, I used to be a lot more guarded, especially in my early 20s, early 30s. I was definitely someone who didn't share all of the things about my life, mostly because I didn't like vulnerability. But I have learned over the years that there's a lot of strength in being vulnerable and open. So that's something I have a little less fear around now. But I think that I only show that side of myself to a very select few groups of people. So can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. Remember, you can always connect with me on Goodreads, Storygraph, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.